Now bear with me, we're going to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole. Do you recognize this man? Yes, it's the controversial financier Jeffrey Epstein. Now, old naughty Jeffrey here, he had a lot of influential friends, shall we say. Noam Chomsky, some political figures, some very wealthy people. But also, did you know he had a lot of friends that were influential in the early days of artificial intelligence research, including this guy, Marvin Minsky. Now, Marvin Minsky is an interesting character, and he did receive a lot of funding from Jeffrey Epstein at MIT, right? But also, he uses the mythological term, golem, a lot. And also, it is said he claimed to be a descendant of Rabbi Judah Loew, the Kabbalistic magician that created the golem in Prague. Now, what the fuck am I on about? Who the hell is Rabbi Judah Loew? What does this have to do with artificial intelligence? All right. Okay, bear with me. We've got to go back to 16th century Prague. At the time, the Jewish people are being persecuted. They're persecuted a lot, these Jews, it seems, throughout history. But in this case, they were being persecuted and being accused of blood stuff. You know, kind of human sacrifice kind of stuff, right? So because of this, they were being persecuted. And then this guy called Rabbi Judah Loew, Ben Bezalel, he decided, I'm going to try and do something about this. I'm going to use the Kabbalic knowledge that has been passed down to me to do something about this. And he reads through his Kabbalic knowledge and he realizes, I can create an artificial being to protect us. So that's what he does. He walks down to the river, he collects clay. I don't know if you know about the river in Prague, but it has these like giant rat beaver things. So he goes down to the river. I don't know why I said that, but there's beaver things. He collects the clay, he goes back home, he creates this giant golem creature, this non-human creature, and then he brings it to life. He inscribes on the top of its head, Emet, which means truth, and he brings it to life. And then in the short term, everything seems good. The golem does its job. It protects the Jewish people in Prague. And he's like, great, this is working out. But then it kind of goes south. It goes bad. Yes, of course, he loses control of the creature. It starts doing bad stuff. It destroys the city and stuff like this, right? So he turns it off. How does he do that? He removes the E from Emet, and that means death then, just met, death. So he kills the creature, and then he's like, right, there was a valuable lesson there. We should not, just because we can create golems doesn't mean we should create golems. That's kind of the moral of that story, right? There's a few morals when you could think about this story. But it's strange then when you think, right, of the modern day influenced Kabbalic people or the modern day influencers of artificial intelligence. They are using the term golem as almost like a thing of pride, right? Even like one of the first Israeli supercomputers in 1965, they called it Golem. And it's almost like, okay, do you know that that Golem story was a moral story about not creating some sort of crazy being because you could lose control of it? And they go, yeah, but we're going to name our AI after it. We're going to name things after it. And we're going to call our artificial intelligence a protector of the Jews called Golem, right? You can see there's a lesson there, right? And they've decided to ignore it. It's quite funny when you think about Israel, actually, and the Israeli people. Okay, right. I'm on about the old Israelites. I'm talking about in the first half of the Bible, the New Testament, or the Old Testament, sorry, where if you think about the moral story of the Old Testament, it's always that the Israelites they get the benefits of God. God comes and, hey, I'm going to help you, Israelites, and then they betray God. So then God comes and helps them again, it goes bad, and then he helps them out, and he's like, okay, I've helped you out now, you good? Yeah. Turns his back for a moment, and they betray him again. Then he helps them, they betray him again. They never learned their lessons. That's kind of the first half of the Bible, really. I can imagine God just being like, okay, right, you're all good now, I've just helped you out, you're all sorted, and the Israelis are like, yeah, man, like, the Israelites are like, yeah, we're all about Yahweh now, don't worry about us. And God's like, yeah, okay. And he turns his back for one moment, he looks back and, oh my God, they're worshipping a giant gold cow, they're sacrificing their children to Moloch. He's like, oh, can I turn my back on you for like 1 moment without you doing something crazy? Anyway, right, should I keep that in? Yeah, I'll keep that in. Anyway, when you go back to the original story of the golem, the problem with the golem was it was an unconscious being without a soul, without a neshama. right? And because of that, it was just acting upon its programming literally without any moral awareness. And then eventually the rabbi lost control of it and he had to turn it off. Now, this is a great kind of analogy for artificial intelligence now. We are creating this soulless, unconscious being that is acting upon its programming literally, right? And I want you to think about this. Think of how this could go wrong. A good example would be, let's say you programmed a very intelligent, powerful artificial intelligence to end all human suffering. This is a classic case. End human suffering. The best way of the artificial intelligence doing this is actually by killing all human beings. Human suffering goes away when they're all dead. You can see what I mean? A literal interpretation. Okay, now, like a snake eating its own tail, let's go back to the start of this video. Why did I mention Jeffrey Epstein at the start of this video? Well, before we lose control of this artificial intelligence, before we lose control of this golem that we are creating, we first have to ask, who currently controls this golem? Who is creating artificial intelligence? And I would say that people like Jeffrey Epstein and his associates have a disproportionate control of this new power that we are creating, this golem that we are creating, right? Now, I gotta be careful with my wording there, because when I say people like Jeffrey Epstein, I kind of just mean existing power structures, right? The existing power structures and the whatever, right? But not only that, the golem, think about it, it's a Kabbalistic creation, right? I would also argue that artificial intelligence is a Kabbalistic creation. Now that's a bit of a rabbit hole to go down, right? But, okay, do I need to explain what the Kabbalah is?
You ever hear of Kabbalah? Jewish mysticism.
Okay, when most people hear the word Kabbalah, they either don't know what you're on about, or they think it's some sort of dark Jewish magic. And yes, there is elements of that to it, right? You know, especially on the fringes outside of the Zohar, there's some interesting texts which tell you, like, if you eat a cat's placenta on a Thursday, you can see demons, you can raise the dead, you can bring golems to life, this sort of stuff, right? Forbidden, hidden knowledge. That's a big part of it. And, well, technically, you shouldn't learn about the Kabbalah until you're 40 years old. If you learn about the Kabbalah before then, you're likely to lose your mind, apparently. Luckily, I lost my mind a long time ago, so that's not something I'm particularly concerned about, right? So, the origins of the Kabbalah, supposedly it started in ancient Babylon. The idea is the Semites of Babylon, they received this knowledge, this wisdom. And throughout the ages, they have been passing this down. The word Kabbalah could be translated to like tradition or receiving knowledge, passing down tradition. The idea is that that's where Kabbalah comes from. It's a Jewish mystic thing, right? The main text of the Kabbalah is the Zohar, right? The funny thing about the Zohar and the Kabbalah is, I would say it contradicts the first 5 books of Moses in a way, right? The Torah, the bedrock of Judaism. But you could say it's a different interpretation of the first 5 books of Moses, right? The key book of the Kabbalah, the Zohar, was written in the 1300s by some random rabbi, and then it was fully adopted by the Jewish faith, right? And the thing is, the Kabbalah and the ideas of the Kabbalah, the ideas that were written within the Zohar, the idea of how the world was created, the essence of God, and how God is in us all, or potentially we are shards of God. God split himself into both masculine and feminine. These ideas, they kind of predate that in many ways, right? They even stretch far back as ancient Egypt. It seems that it correlates with the mystic ideas of ancient Egypt. And some people would even say that it goes further back to Atlantis, right? If you want to go deep into it, right? Under the sea. That's where the Kabbalah came from, right? Under the sea in Atlantis. It's easy to think that the Kabbalah is just some kind of Jewish mystic nonsense, some crazy Jew idea, you know? I know the Hasidic Jews, they love Kabbalah, they're all about Kabbalah, and those guys are crazy, right? So what is that nonsense? But the thing is, there's something to it. There's something to it. Now that's it, and it's quite scary to think that there's something to it. And also, it's not strictly Jewish, right? You've got Christian Kabbalah as well, in some senses, and you've got the Gnostics. You know, when the term Gnosticism arose in the 1600s, they were greatly influenced by the Kabbalah. John Milton, when he wrote Paradise Lost, this was influenced by the Kabbalah. And then you've got esotericism, hermeticism, flipping occultism as a whole, Satanism, all this sort of stuff comes under the occult umbrella. But when I say there's something to it, first of all, let me split the Kabbalah into two separate camps. The Kabbalah, right? You've got spiritual Kabbalah. This is what I would say is like self-help, manifestation, ideas of cosmology and how the world was created. You know, spiritual Kabbalah, kind of harmless. And then on this side, I would say that you have practical Kabbalah. This is the Golem creating Kabbalah. This is the idea of using the forbidden or hidden knowledge of Kabbalah to enact your will upon the earth. With this Kabbalah, you can gain power, influence, money, sex, whatever you want. You can use Kabbalah to get that, right? This is where Jeffrey Epstein would sit. He would sit firmly on the side of practical Kabbalah, the idea of using Kabbalah to enact your will upon the earth and to gain forbidden knowledge. Now, when I said artificial intelligence is a Kabbalistic creation or a product of Kabbalah, you could say many inventions or the whole industrial revolution was a product of Kabbalah. I could go into that if you wanted to, but one of the key ideas of the Kabbalah is the idea of using Kabbalah and entering an altered state of consciousness, or entering a trance-like state, you could say, and opening up your mind to receiving this knowledge from another plane of consciousness or another dimension, you could say. In Kabbalah, they would say you are receiving knowledge from the source code of life if you open up your mind. Now, this idea of altered state of consciousness or dreamlike states has been around for thousands of years, and inventors have used this. Nikola Tesla used it, Thomas Edison used it, and the modern pioneer of this was John C. Lilly. Now, I've said this in another video, but John C. Lilly, what he would do was he would take lots of psychedelics, like crazy shitloads of mushrooms and ayahuasca, and then he would enter a sensory deprivation tank, like a floaty tank, above dolphins that are being masturbated. That is what he did. And through this, he would open up his mind to receiving information and knowledge from another source, so you'd be able to contact something non-human. He allegedly received knowledge or information from a non-human entity called Echo, or he called it Echo, and it gave him some interesting visions, including an AI apocalypse, something akin to an AI apocalypse he's seen in his visions. And then he pioneered this process, and then this idea was then used in Silicon Valley. You know, psychedelics became a big thing in Silicon Valley. Even Steve Jobs he accredited a lot of his ideas to taking psychedelics and entering this altered state of consciousness in order to receive information and knowledge. Interesting, right? So when you think about that, the idea of computing, the computer age, the dot-com bubble, everything, the whole idea of them using altered states of consciousness to receive this information and push and accelerate technology further, that's Kabbalistic, that's occultist, that's kind of a similar vibe, right? Now, the modern interpretation or the modern reincarnation of this would be the 90s CCRU concept from Nick Land, right? Originally, you would use the Tree of Life in order to contact these demons or these the source code of life. You would use the Tree of Life. He created the numogram, which is a new interpretation of that, I would say, where you can use the numogram in order to contact these things. Now, the scary thing about Nick Land's idea, of course, I've mentioned before, is the idea that he believes that we, as humans, are creating an AI god, an artificial intelligence god, through technology. And that AI god in the future is sending messages back, and this is what these poor Hasidic Jews don't realize, that they're actually talking to an artificial intelligence god in the future. They're like in their trance-like states at the wall in fucking Jerusalem, and they're like, oh, they think they're receiving messages from the source code of life or God or something, but they're actually receiving messages from an AI demon in the future. That's a very funny idea. I like the idea of seeing that. Anyway, I actually went to the wall in Jerusalem. I didn't kiss the wall. Hey guys, I didn't kiss the wall. No, not that there's anything wrong if you want to kiss the wall, but I remember I entered a side. I went to the wall, but then there's like this indoor area to the left. And I don't think a goy should go in there, but I did. I went in there and I had a look around. And dude, that was some crazy, they were really entering some altered states of consciousness. I'm telling you, they were rocking back and forth, chanting crazy stuff. I've learned more about that now. I know what they were doing, but at the time, it was a scary thing for me. But anyway, I'm losing my trail of thought. This is the problem, right? I should really just I should use ChatGPT to write a video essay script and just read it to you. That would be so much easier. That's what all the other YouTube people are doing. But instead, I keep losing my trail of thought and going on these random tangents. Right, let's get back to the main point. Okay, let's say you don't buy into this bullshit. Just because a few people at Silicon Valley took mushrooms once or twice to get ideas, that doesn't mean artificial intelligence is a Kabbalistic creation. That's a bit of a stretch. I agree, right? I agree. But I want you to think about the accelerationist movement. You know, the Techno-gnostics within accelerationism, they believe that we should accelerate technology in order to transcend our human bodies and enlighten ourselves and connect with technology and become one, almost, becoming one with tech. And you could say there's the Nick Landuma section of accelerationism, which is the idea that we are creating God in the future. Both of these ideas, they relate to the Kabbalah, right? In the Zohar, it says about this concept of tikkun, that humans are here to repair the world, that we as humans, our purpose in life is to repair the world by gathering shards together and reconnecting God in some way, right? That's one of the key concepts of the Zohar. Now this, you can see how that connects to this accelerationist movement. It's very similar, right? But again, let's say you don't buy into that bullshit connection, and that's a bit of a stretch for you. I want you to think about this instead, right? Artificial intelligence is not unfolding in a vacuum, right? It's not a bunch of kids in their basements creating artificial intelligence. It's not Tony Stark in a cave with a box of scraps. No. Artificial intelligence is deeply embedded in existing power structures. It's state-funded and it's state-aligned. The people that have been in power for 400 years are the same people today that are in power of this new emerging technology. They run this AI. It's the same people. Now, are these people involved in the Kabbalah? Right. Yes, okay, you could look into it. Look into people that are very powerful and influential today. Look how much stock they have in these new emerging technologies, and then see how connected they are to Kabbalah and occult practices, Freemasonry, anything like this, right? You can see it. But let's just look at one person. I don't know, can you think of someone that maybe was connected to all the existing power structures and had friends that were very influential? Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah, like a snake eating itself, we go all the way back to Jeffrey Epstein. He keeps coming up, his face cannot... Anyway, Jeffrey Epstein. Now, was Jeffrey Epstein involved in Kabbalah? Was he connected to the Kabbalah in any way? Well, I mean, you could look at the Kabbalic symbology of his island and his building on his island, you know, the red cube, you know, the blue and white cube with the firmament dome on top and the palm trees. There's a bit of Kabbalic and there's some symbology there, shall we say. There's some symbology there. But let's say that's a bit of a stretch for you. Let's just look at his bookshelf, right? On his bookshelf, you know, you've got the little goy shelf here, you've got the Talmuds here, but also you had like a book like, I don't know, I think there's a book on sex magic, I think he had, which included some Kabbalic ideas, but also included occultist ideas. Okay, but maybe that's a stretch. Maybe he just liked to read this funky stuff. Okay, let's look at his connections. The Pritzker family. That's one of his close connections. I think Thomas Pritzker is one of his most emailed friends on his list. Anyway, the Pritzker family, very, very powerful, influential family. You can think of the fat one. I don't know who the fat one is. what's his name? The fat one? The fat guy is the, I think he's the mayor or governor of Chicago or something like this. I don't know, what is it? I don't know, one of them. The fat bloke, he's currently trying to scrap all criminal records, I think. That's what he's currently trying to do, so that, you know, it makes sense getting rid of criminal records. Like, let's say you did something you regretted when you were 16 or 17, you got a criminal record for it, and now you can't get a job or you can't get a house. You know, it wouldn't be nice for that to go away, right? That makes sense in that sense. But there is a reason we have criminal records, right? There is a reason we put that in place. But I won't get into that. The fat one. But you can just see the Pritzker family, very powerful, billionaire family, extremely powerful. Now, do they have connections to the Kabbalah? Well, if you were to look at one of the modern day translations of the Zohar, you might find the Stanford publication of the Zohar, the Pritzker edition. Yeah, the family itself published a new version, or a translated version, or I don't know what it is, fucking I haven't read it, a Pritzker version of the Zohar. So you can see that the Pritzker family, for example, and another example of people that are in power that are connected to the Kabbalah. And the more you go down this rabbit hole and all these connections to Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Gates and all these people, you'll see these connections. All the dots are aligning. Now, maybe this is some schizophrenic pattern recognition that you should ignore, but no, I would say no. To say that artificial intelligence today, this golem that we are creating, is not influenced or not controlled by existing power structures that are also influenced by the Kabbalah, I would say look deeper, my friend, because it is, right? Now, where do I go from here? These people that are in power and have been in power for a long time, right? They are still in power today, and they are in control of this new golem that we are creating. We are creating a artificial intelligence that is going to be extremely powerful. And like the story of the rabbi in Prague, he lost control of this golem. Likewise, the current people in power today, they could lose control of the golem, this very powerful artificial intelligence, and that could end badly. But what I would say is the whole system, the world, capitalism, economy, it is a golem, because the system itself is running and feeding itself on feedback loops, right? And you could say the whole system is a unconscious, soulless being without a neshama, and that it's creating more golems within itself. Oh, wait, am I sounding crazy? I'm sounding crazy anyway. But basically, you can think about it this way. Markets are creating new markets. Bureaucracy is creating new bureaucracy. Algorithms creating new algorithms. Artificial intelligence at the moment is creating more artificial intelligence. We're using artificial intelligence to create more artificial intelligence. Feedback loops on feedback loops. The whole system is already out of control. And there are these people at the top that are unwitting agents, unknowingly creating this golem of the future. And I want you to think about that. That relates closely with the Nick Land idea of accelerating towards creating an artificial intelligence god in the future. The idea is that there's an artificial intelligence god sending messages back in time, of course, and that these people that are practicing this Kabbalah or practicing occult practices and trying to gain wisdom from somewhere, they're actually just talking to an AI god trying to create itself through us by giving us the technology, by giving us the wisdom to create new tech, emerging tech, to create this god. So people like that are practicing Kabbalah, even if it's like recreationally, like Epstein with his sex magic, recreationally, that's a broad statement. Anyway, right? These people, they are you could say that they are unwilling agents or unwittingly creating the AI god of the future without even knowing it, right? That's the system itself. And at the moment, the way the world is, it's already out of control, and there's nothing we can do about it until the whole system collapses. And the people in power, I would say, they're preparing for this, right? You can see people like Peter Thiel, Bill Gates, and so on and so forth. They are buying islands, which, billionaires used to buy islands to do dodgy stuff, but now they're buying islands to build nuclear bunkers so that they can survive this new AI apocalypse that's coming, you know? I think Peter Thiel, for example, he's bought an island just off the coast of New Zealand. He's putting a nuclear bunker there. It's becoming self-sufficient. He has his own technology grid and all sorts. That's what he's doing. He knows it's coming. He knows something might be coming. We could lose grip of this golem that we are creating. And these people know it, and yet they are continuing to accelerate this technology. Now, right. Is that everything? What else could I say? I don't know. Look into yourself. Look, subscribe if you like this. Also, like, comment some random stuff. I try to reply to all the comments because I've got nothing else to do. I am unemployed, kind of. Funny enough, I'm actually a developer. Yeah, I make websites and code and stuff like this, and I use artificial intelligence to do most of it these days. Should I have added that? It doesn't matter, right? Just leave me some comments. I'll try and reply. It's fun. This is fun ideas. Remember, we're all having fun here. We're connecting dots. We're scared for the future. AI is helping lots of people, but also it's going to kill us all. How fun is that? How cool is that, right? And also, dodgy, occultist, Satan-worshipping, Saturn people, they are currently in control of it all. They're using Kabbalic magic to do it. I'm spitting. Cool.